Good evening. It is 6:04 p.m. I'm going to call this meeting to order. This is the regular business meeting of the Smithfield Township Board of Supervisors. Please join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We actually are on Zoom. It's just not.
Yeah. So we are on Zoom. It's just we're having an issue or something. I don't know.
With the TV.
But we're on Zoom and our solicitor's with us on Zoom. So we'll get to him in a second. Members present include myself, Chair Jacob Pride, Vice Chair Robert Levenheim, Supervisor Michael Albert, Solicitor Karasek is with us on Zoom, as I noted, Engineer John Tressler, Admin Coordinator Diana Salvi, and Township Manager Julia Heilecker are present. First order of business is the minutes of April 24th, 2024, the regular meeting. Do I hear a motion on that?
Motion approved.
Motion by Mr. Levenheim. I will second. Any questions? No, Michael, you weren't there.
Yeah, I don't have to stand up.
Yeah, it's fine. All in favor?
Aye.
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 And we have the May 8th, 2024 regular meeting as well. You all have a chance to review that. Do I hear a motion on that?
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Levenheim. Do I hear a second?
I will second.
Second by Mr. Albert. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Two announcements. There's a standing executive session this evening. We ended up starting at 5:12 due to time constraints, and we concluded at 5:58. It was regarding litigation in the Ellis matter. There's also a hazardous waste collection event Saturday, June 15th from 8 to 2 at the Military Road Recycling Site. And pre-registration is required. If you have questions, you can see Diana, and we also are publicizing that on our social media and whatnot. And we have our bills from today, grand total of $535,125.48. You'll note the jump is generally not due to any of the regular expenses. These are from capital improvement grant fund and the fire tax and EMS tax funds. So they were distributed in accordance with what we had in agreement with the most recent performance standard resolutions. Do I hear a motion on that?
Motion to approve the bills.
Okay, motion by Mr. Levenheim. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Second, Mr. Albert. Questions?
Just so I make sure I understand when I see these things. Obviously, so 121 is EMX, 121,000 is EMX. But then what's the other 229.10? Is that just because it's different? It's the
Those are
tax refund?
Those are refunds
Okay,
due to tax appeals.
but it still comes out of the same fund,
Correct.
okay.
Correct.
And then we've got $238,000 going out to fire companies. So that's exciting
Yes.
for them. And 425 again, a refund.
Right.
And then the 107 telco, that's the only other thing that I want to understand, because that's a big one.
That is payment for the Green Light Go grant.
All right, which we approved. All right, okay. Everything else is pretty small and pretty clear.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right,
Okay, we'll proceed to the solicitor's report, and I'm going to more or less lump in item E under new business, which is the status update for the Ellis enforcements, and that is the bulk of Ron's report. So Ron, you don't mind?
Yes, good evening, everyone. The update on the Ellis matter is that there was a
Ron,
hearing.
hold on, we can't hear you. Can you hear us okay?
I can hear you fine and I'm not on mute, so I'm not sure why you can't hear me.
Yeah.
Okay.
You having owl issues?
The owls are,
Yeah.
okay. Ron, can you say something again?
Yes, hello, test 1, 2, 3. Did that work? Did that work?
Hear us?
I can hear you guys fine.
Yeah, we can hear you too. Go ahead. You're on to your report.
Yes. And I said we're going to use the bulk of that for you to explain the recent developments in the Ellis enforcement matter, so. Since you're
Okay.
on.
The Ellis matter was heard before the local magisterial district judge where the township prevailed. Mr. Ellis then appealed out of time that decision to the county court in Monroe County. And the judge found in favor of Mr. Ellis, allowing him to take his appeal out of time and to find that he should win on a technicality dealing with some evidence. So the district attorney's office has asked if I would take over that appeal. Now understand that matters such as citations, things that are quasi-criminal, summary offenses, those are handled by the district attorney. A private attorney as myself am not permitted to handle those unless the DA gives me permission. Now, under township zoning matters, I can handle those if the DA gives me permission, but no one requested that I handle that matter before the judge this past week, and it was handled by an assistant district attorney as would be required. But they are now telling me, the assistant district attorney tells me, of course, they're understaffed and underpaid, and if I would take the appeal of that decision to the next higher court, which is the Superior Court of PA, because he believes it's a winner on appeal. I'm not quite sure if I completely buy into that, but I don't know much about the whole background of the case because I'm just starting to get my feet wet in this matter. But if the township wants me to file an appeal on behalf of the township, then it should be made part of a motion. And the township could probably expect to spend around $5,000 in that appeal if, in fact, you wish me to do that. Now, as a corollary to that appeal, I'm told that there are additional matters that are similar filed against Mr. Ellis to be heard before the local district judge on June 3rd. I believe that is set for 9 o'clock, but I'm not positive. It could be later in the day. It's Monday, June 3rd. And if the township wants me to personally handle those matters before the magisterial district judge, again, that should be made part of a motion. Now, remember, Mr. Wolf handled these matters on his own on the first Ellis case, the one that was just appealed before common pleas. And he was able to win without any attorney or counsel being there. So the board may say, just let Ken do it on his own. And then if they are appealed, we'll then get you involved. That's your call. But
Question. Ron, quick question. The major differences between the case that was appealed and one on technicality and the one coming up on June 4th are what?
I am told they are very similar. Now, again, I haven't seen the case that was just lost, if you will. So I don't know all of the background, but I am told it's pretty much the same thing. And apparently there were some technical matters that were to be brought before the consideration of the court, a copy of the ordinance, a copy of some other things that the judge did not have that he felt were technical issues that should in fact have been given to him. And that was one of the reasons why he dismissed the matter. So the matter wasn't dismissed on the merits, as lawyers like to say. It wasn't dismissed on the fact that he's right and we're wrong. It was dismissed on the typical technicality. So I don't think the June 3rd hearings will be affected by that. Although, again, I'm not the magisterial district judge. The judge may say, hey, Karasek, this was blown out by the county court judge. Until I see what happens with that case on appeal, I'm not even deciding these cases. That could occur.
Well, I think another factor here is, I'm just assuming the original hearing before Judge Germano that Mr. Ellis didn't have representation. I don't know that, but I just assume it. I think in this case, he probably will have
Well, he
representation.
did in this case, so according to what we discussed, based on what Ron just said publicly and what we briefly were able to discuss. By its virtue as a legal decision in the executive session, I'm going to entertain a motion to have Solicitor Karasak appeal the Court of Common Pleas decision in the Ellis matter. Do I hear a second on that? Okay, Bush.
Can I, no, that was discussion. Because we're appealing the decision, or if we appeal the decision, does that technicality follow through, or, cause I know, you've got to introduce evidence of initial cases, I'm not a legal expert
There is
on.
no evidence in.
Some evidence is cause it's already, it's the.
No, you can't.
Or you can't, you have to introduce the ordinance.
So you're not able to add to the record in Superior Court.
Right,
The-
with this.
The record is what was presented before the judge at the hearing that happened a week or so ago. We can't add to that. So
My
we're
understanding is that-
stuck with that record. The DA thinks that the winner of this is the fact that the judge let him appeal out of time. He believes that's where the township would be able to prevail. I don't know that. There are some cases, in fact, they go both ways. If cases didn't go both ways, we lawyers would be out of work, I guess. But some
Well,
say
my
you can,
understanding-
yeah, go ahead.
So my understanding was that ordinances, which is what you're saying, Higgins was saying was a technicality, he needed to see it. My understanding is that doesn't have to be submitted as evidence because it is, at least that was what was discussed when we were doing the conditional use hearing, was that the ordinance itself does not have to be submitted as evidence because it's already assumed to be sort of law and should be known. Is that not true?
Right, and that's what the DA said. The DA said, when I do a DUI case, I don't have to introduce the DUI statute. It's considered that that's a violation of the law when I say section 75, 3802, et cetera, et cetera. So that could be also a basis for, I mean, we will make that a basis for the appeal, but the DA believes the stronger case is on the letting him appeal without or beyond the 30-day window.
And I would argue to do both.
Yeah.
And I would certainly argue that if the dismissal of the case was based on the fact that the judge didn't have the ordinance, and that's what we should also appeal on those grounds as well, because my understanding that is not a requirement.
Right,
Okay.
and that's what the DA's position is too.
Alright, so there's a motion by myself and a second by Robert. Is there any other discussion?
Do you need to hear me comment?
That's what I'm asking for.
Yes. Just for your own information, for Mr. Karasek's information, Ken was subpoenaed on Monday. Okay, on Tuesday, I contacted the Assistant District Attorney's Office and offered him our testimony to be witnesses. Okay, we have plenty of pictures, we have plenty of information to back up what he's doing with the business at his house. And I was very curtly told no. That was the entire conversation, no. And I said to him, I go, okay, I said, well, if you do need anything, from us, we're more than welcome to help you. And then it was a shame because when Ken went into court to testify, he had no one there to back him up with any kind of witnesses also. So I already had spoken to Ken, we had an email, and we will be present at the hearing on the 3rd before Judge Levy to also present, to give him whatever information we have also on it, because he hasn't had his equipment there for the past couple of weeks. But from the point that he was actually found guilty by Germano to, I think it was like the ending of April, it was still there, everything was still there, we have pictures, everything to document it.
Also, the fact that, this first was dismissed on technicality and not based on merit means that this new case before,
Okay,
the
so you
magistrate
cracked it different.
just needs to be done, crafted and,
That's gonna be the next motion.
okay, right, sorry,
No, it's not.
on the appeal.
Okay. Alright. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, subsequently, do I hear a motion to have Solicitor Karasek handle or prosecute the June 3rd hearing in the Ellis matter?
Second.
I'll make that motion and second.
I can motion it. Cool. I'll motion.
Motion by Ms. Bellers, second. Okay, any questions on that?
Let me
Okay.
say this, Mr. Chair. Tell that young lady, thank you for her comments with respect to this matter. And I'm unlike a lot of other lawyers. I bring in whatever I can bring in, you know, the old kitchen sink routine if I can. So if you have people that can testify as to violations on the June 3rd case, now I don't know what dates they are, what times they are, who said what, we'll have to figure that out. But if there are witnesses there, I want you in that courtroom as opposed to just Ken, because Ken gets information received. He's not there watching what happens. And to get information received, you've got to have the person who gives the information. So make sure that he is aware and I'm aware of what's what so we can have you testify.
Janice, I'll be
I
in
have-
touch.
Excuse me?
I'll be in touch.
Great, I was saying, because I actually have photos that are timed in the end. Okay, and I have them all printed out and everything for you, so,
Beautiful.
okay.
Yeah, and Julie will make sure to connect, so you guys are talk before.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fine.
It's coming up now, quick.
Assuming.
Okay, and then getting back, Mr. Chair, I have to jump off, unfortunately. The only other reports that I have.
Hold on, Rob, we gotta vote, we have to vote on that real quick.
Oh, okay, I thought you did, sorry.
All in favor?
Okay, now we have.
Okay, so the only other report I have is obviously working on various matters that have come before us, including the preparing the decision and attending the zoning hearing board meeting earlier in the month when decisions were made on the motocross case. So other than that, that's pretty much what has gone on. So unless the board or anyone in the audience has any other questions, with your permission, I'm going to jump off.
Worries. Thank you, Ron.
All right, we good? Okay, thank you so much. And of course, I have my cell phone with me. If some emergency comes up, just call the cell. And I'll answer it, even if I'm in another hearing. Okay. All right, take care now. Thanks again.
Thanks, John. Okay. Engineers report, decided to be a little less fun, but that's good.
A little less fun, a little less long. The only thing outside of the normal projects that we've been working on, the inspection at Airstrip Road and going back and forth with a punch list on that. And working on Wellness Park plan. I did have an opportunity to review the Price's Landing Road information that Julia provided. Unfortunately, I'm not able to draw a conclusion yet. It did contain a title report. Mentioned several easements and plans, but they were not included in that information. So I'm going to have to get that. I can easily obtain it because it did have reporting information, but I didn't have the opportunity to do that. So hopefully I'll have that by the next meeting.
Where do you get that?
Courthouse.
Courthouse has it?
Courthouse has it, and the good thing is you can do it electronically now.
Yeah, reporter's office.
Alright.
Cool stuff.
But what you provided, Julia, was very good. That saved me a lot of time for initial contact.
Yeah, but Marguerite Vecchio, who was in the audience, also provided a lot of the information, so thank you.
Yep, that was helpful.
Awesome.
And that's it, unless there's any questions.
Board of Supervisors report. I just had one quick thing to note. It looked like cleanup went really well this year. I think the volume is low and we're collecting numbers, but it seems like in the last few years, people have gotten rid of a lot more in the last few years. So in the last, year or so, except for electronics, the electronic collection seems to be pretty squarely up. Got a lot of old TVs, and I just wanted to commend Public Works for that. And yeah, probably didn't see it yet, but Chris did, the pictures of the bridge at Marshall's Falls that was painted.
Oh,
So,
I saw an email come through, this is what I'm getting expected.
oh, yeah, so I just wanted to thank them.
Oh, nice. That was related to the fact there was a brand new bridge, there was graffiti on it, but it's now been painted and it looks lovely. There's no more graffiti.
Yeah, so, yeah.
And
And
hard to put graffiti on black.
anything from,
That was great.
I recognize I'm not a board of supervisor, but I have a congratulatory email. This morning, we did get notification that the LSA grant that the township put in on behalf of Marshall Street Fire Company was approved. We asked for just over $250,000 and we got $248,000. So, this money is going to allow the Marshall Street Fire Company to put in a much needed exhaust system, as well as washers and dryers, so they aren't transporting their contaminated equipment in their own vehicles, and allow them to upgrade the security system. So we are super excited about this wonderful thing coming through. So big thank you to everybody involved, Rosemary Brown, and our folks, and Marie Madden as well. They were the three local officials that were involved with that.
Do they know yet?
yeah,
Yes.
Cool. And they also got a check for $150,000 this week.
yeah,
Sweet.
so there's a lot of good going on that, but you deserve a lot of kudos for that, Julia, you worked pretty tirelessly on that. LSA grant, I don't know what your total is anymore, but it's a lot, so that's good. Saves everyone some money,
I think it's 2.25 million.
yeah, now with this one.
Look into that. I don't know.
So this is really cool and that'll make for a good meeting when we have our quarterly meeting then.
Well, because they got all this money, they've informed us that instead of having a road drive in Memorial Day, they're actually gonna give out.
Yeah. Wow, that'll be next year, you or actually now, with the LSA window, so
I wasn't.
let us know, we're apparently pretty good. So kudos to everyone involved on that. All right, anything else that y'all wanna mention before we do the consent agenda?
Yeah, I don't have anything.
Agenda includes 3 items. Consideration of authorizing non-paid internship for Kathleen Pascal. She is a local resident here in the township and is interested in getting to know municipal government, and we're never going to say no to more help. I know Julia has some really good ideas that she and I were talking about the other day. With regard to ordinance updates and showing her the ropes. Second is to grant special event permit for the 4th annual truck show and waive the fee on that. And then the consideration to grant a special event permit for the Pocono Food Truck Festival, both Independence Day fireworks display, and waive the fees accordingly, as that traditionally been fundraiser. So, are there any questions?
Well, where is that Pocono Food Truck Festival and the fireworks?
The Vincent, right? Or is it at Vincent?
I mean,
No,
The Independence Day fireworks are at Ski Shawnee,
Oh,
and so is the food truck festival.
The old truck show, is that what the question?
No, Old Truck Show, that's at the same. That one is on June 16th. And then the fireworks is July 5th. And 10/5 and 10/6 for the food truck. So. Ready for those.
No, I was just wondering if I should have said. So. Yeah, that's minority interest.
In both, or just.
No, just in the food truck, it's so silly because I don't, but it's small, but
I'm staying on that one, I'm sure.
I'll stand on it.
Okay.
Just because there's technically a waiver of fee, so there's a.
Do I hear a motion on items A and B?
I'll make a motion to approve.
All seconds.
Second, Mr. Albert, questions? All in favor? Aye. I'll move that we grant the special event permit for the food truck festival and the Independence Day fireworks and waive the fee. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Levenheim. Any questions? Let the record reflect, Mr. Albert will abstain. All in favor? Aye. Okay. Under old business, we have the consideration of the approval of Franklin Hill Minor subdivision. John, Nate, who wants to Oh, that's actually not you, you're on the street. It's good, you're here for other fun.
I'm here for the result.
I think approval may be premature only because they, to my knowledge, they have not secured the important drainage easement from the Chiquitas yet, which they need for the project to move forward.
Right.
So they've addressed most of the technical comments in our letter. I think if they need the easements, they will be ready to move, but I wouldn't recommend that you approve it yet.
Are they constructing a road?
No,
Well, we'll see.
But they need to do drainage, they need to do stormwater,
they are doing stormwater, yes,
and
and
the stormwater requires these.
the water currently does go across Franklin Hill Road onto the Chicago's property, so they're not changing the drainage pattern. But the existing pipe has to be upgraded and the outfall should be riprap, just to bring it up to modern day standards as part of the improvements. They have agreed to do it and they have agreed to try to obtain the easement. They said the preliminary discussions with I believe it's trustee for the Chiquitas estate, or whoever's handling that, are going well, but to my knowledge, they still don't have the easement.
Motion to table.
Motion table by Mr. Albert, do we hear that? Second, Mr. Levenheim, all in favor, any question? All in favor? Aye. Okay. To do business, we have the consideration to schedule public hearing for the Stratford Air Park petition for a zoning change request, and we have a order to be heard on that.
I'll give you a quick description of the request. This is a rezoning request over on Airport Road. This is property owned by Pocono Stroudsburg Airport Inc. They own this property as well as this property. The rezoning request is this 4 acres right here. Right now, this is in the R1 zoning district. It's adjacent to the M1 district here. It's adjacent to the M1 district across the street. And it's separated, the creek goes through here. So this is the floodway. So there's a natural, basically no development buffer here. So this little piece of residential is really surrounded by the industrial. And that's the request to rezone this 4 acres from the R1 to the M1 zoning district.
That's the east side, right?
Let's see here. North
Yeah.
is this way, so, yeah, east.
It's the other side of Airport Road.
Here's the old runway right here.
Yeah, okay, so it's the other side of the road.
So it's the other side. Correct.
I personally walked this area that's up for rezoning that. I see no reason why we should.
Well, we're not making any decisions on that, this is about getting a hearing, right?
That's correct.
Yeah.
Just explaining what
And in that hearing, because it is a zone change hearing, there's like posts everywhere, right?
Right, there's the
So,
postings and
Yeah.
mail letters to the surrounding properties.
Yeah.
Are there any residences presently in that zone? In that,
So there is residential to the rear here, to the north side. This,
is there any in the square, they own it already, they own it.
he owns this piece all across here, so he owns this, and this piece here.
Okay, well, I know that our, I don't remember exactly when our deadline schedule that is, but basically to make sure it's posted in time. The earliest we can do is June 26th.
Yeah, so
That's
the
supposed to
60
30.
days for this application expires on July 12th.
Oh.
We're required to post once a week for 2 successive weeks, not more than 30 days, nor less than 7 before. So if you guys want to plan to do this on the June 26th, that will give us plenty of time to put the posting together. Post the property 7 days before the public hearing.
But then only be 4 days.
First class mail to everybody, which are nearby residents too, right?
It's the posting, doesn't the posting 2 weeks or 30 days?
If the proposal involves a map change, the property must be conspicuously posted at least 7 days before the public hearing.
Short.
Yeah, but since I'm reading an email from Ron, but since the proposal involves a zoning map change and at least 30 days before the Board of Supervisors hearing, written notices must be forwarded to all addresses. So if we plan to do on the second meeting of June, we'll be a little bit under the gun.
Also, the mail notices are sent out by the end of by Friday.
by Friday, we can make June 26th work.
Can you do that? You get them up by Friday?
Yeah, this is typically handled by someone else in the staff, but it will be handled by Friday.
Yeah, there's not that many adjacent parcels.
Right, that should only be right across the street and to the.
Okay. All right, do I hear a motion to schedule that hearing for June 26th?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Albert, do I hear a second, Mr. Lebanon, any questions on?
What is an airport?
Oh, that's just the name, I mean, it's the old airport, so it's their corporate name is the Air Park.
Oh, okay. Well, do we know what the usage will be for?
No, it's just industrial, anything that would be permitted in industrial zoning district. So this whole property is on the zone industrial, and the change is just this.
Town one to be.
So the stream is right here, so this is all in the floodway, so it's prohibited from being developed in here. So it'd just be adding this onto this already industrial zone parcel there. And all this across the street is already currently industrial.
Okay.
If you have a question.
She asked that question.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, we will see you soon. Next is the consideration to designate noise control officers. Technically by ordinance and by statute, the code enforcement officer, which is in this case the zoning officer, is already on that, but I know, Robert, you wanted to discuss this item. So,
Well, I think, we need more research on how we actually designate somebody as an officer here, because we don't know what the exact requirements would be yet for something to hold up in court. So I think, we should just table this until we have a look
you
at
can
it.
find a table, but I do think the ordinance pretty clearly allows us the ability to designate, it's just we're waiting on the certification from the new, that second reader. We already have one reader.
Yeah, well, that could do it if the other reader gives us significant more information.
But the other reader does. We wanted that one to have immediately this one.
The other reader, the one we just bought,
Is that it yet?
Yeah, it's been here since the ordinance was enacted.
Oh, that's-
We're waiting
That's
on.
what I have, well, actually.
Right,
Yes.
we're still waiting on the second one. I reached out to the company and I still haven't heard back from them because it's a new vendor. We need to set up a business account,
Okay.
tax exempt.
But that's the one that has been used with someone, another township that had a similar ordinance, is that right? No.
That was the one that the company recommended based on our ordinance.
Right, okay.
Do we know what it does, that this one doesn't?
Yes, it gives you more ability to offload direct information from it, and the readers are a little bit more complex, so it's the difference between a $100 one versus it's roughly $700.
So it allows to take readings and then do a record of that, and the record can be downloaded or uploaded?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, that's great,
Yeah, so it should be good.
much improved, and we should be able to then designate anyone that I guess the noise / enforcement officer feels is confident to run it, right?
Yeah, if there's no certification in it, I guess the whole point is to be able to get to a.
Well, the company offers a certification with that.
Alright, great, so then, because if someone appeals, then they can say, was this person trained by the company? Yes, they were. Alright, I know what they were doing.
It's going to hear motion to table that then.
Yeah, we're just waiting to get that piece of equipment.
Correct, the second one.
Okay. I'll move to table.
Motion by Mr. Albert, do I hear a second? Second, Mr. Levenheim, any questions?
I have a question.
Go ahead, Lynn.
Does that mean that Ken is the only one who can currently issue a citation for noise?
No,
No one is,
complaints can be filed separately, but he is the township's designated person filed, so you can file a complaint yourself as in the ordinance, but this allows.
And he's always the only person that can issue a citation.
Correct.
Even when we do this, what we're trying to do here is say, all right. There will be certain people that are allowed to go and make formal township readings. So that Ken doesn't have to be the one that actually goes and does reading. Ken will still need to be the one, or our zoning officer is still required to be the person that gives the citation. But anyone that has been a noise control officer will be allowed to formally be a township resident that collects that information, says, yes, the township has been there
Mhm.
to record formally that this was in breach. Versus a complaint, which is what triggers us to go do that.
Okay.
Brad has a question.
When operating that app, do we know if it, when the app is turned on, it registers the geolocation and all the pertinent current information, and usually those apps either give, it's binary, it's either successful reading or it's an unsuccessful reading. And I'm wondering if that, indeed, the app needs a professional operator, or is the app?
Well, the app itself is not. The app is just something that we've kind of talked about as an example to measure things, but.
The app is great for residents to use to record your complaint effectively. So is this too loud? It seems loud to me, but is it in breach of their, you know, it looks from this app that it probably is, and if you're able to show that it was, then our noise control officer, someone will come out to make a formal reading. That's the idea.
Yeah, from the public standpoint, we can download the app and go.
Yes, it's called
NIOSH,
NIOSH.
yeah,
NIOSH space SLM. It's the one recommended by the OSHA.
Just for your information, I tried both the NIAX and this much more sensitive noise meter we had last weekend, and they pretty much agree.
Right.
So,
I mean, does it
yeah.
take a snapshot and record that, and then you can upload it, or is it somebody like holding a thing and looking at the measurement? And just seeing,
It shows active times as it goes, and you usually record a period of time, and it'll tell you what the rate was as for that time period.
so essentially that can be entered in as evidence.
I mean,
It's big.
yes. It could, our intention is not to use like an app for our enforcement. But we really encourage it is more of, you can use that to kind of determine when you want to go forward with a complaint.
Thank you.
The challenge is, I'd say, is if, you know, you're breaking the rules at 65 and you come back on this and it's 66, that might be a hard one to, it might not be priority number one to come out. If you were showing that it's registering at 80, then yeah, we're gonna come out right away and report it and try to figure that out. That's at least my thoughts on how it would be implemented if I was a zoning officer.
Right.
I'm not, but
And there are guidelines for approaching properties.
Yeah, I mean, some don't. Well, fortunately, it should be fairly easy in your own case because it's from your property.
it's from your property, it's not from
So
their
you
property.
don't have to get too close, although I would definitely, if people are kooky, I definitely would get too close. We can always handle that professionally, so. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I,
Okay, next is discussion on non-governmental contributions and standards. Robert and Michael, you both expressed some thoughts on this, because we have historically made contributions to affiliated organizations. Generally speaking, they've been things like Broadhead Watershed Association, Pocono Mountains United Way, as of late, Cherry Creek Watershed, for example. I know that you all had some thoughts, but you have pretty direct experience with that, so.
I just, so for the benefit of everyone, it looks like we have in the past budgeted about $10,000 to give out to nonprofits. It seems like it's basically been either at the whim of the supervisors and or whatever comes in,
Yeah.
right? Someone happens to ask,
That's all.
and I just feel like that. I don't think that the township is is a grant making entity. I mean, that's not what we are, but these aren't grants, these are donations. It
Yes.
seems odd to me to take at the municipal level to do that. It's coming from someone with a career in nonprofit work that goes out and asks people for money. And I mean, all these nonprofits are gonna hate me, but I think it's odd that we're doing it. I don't know if other townships do. I mean,
They do.
it's one thing also to take an ad out, maybe, but then I question like, why does the township need an ad? Like, what are we advertising?
Michael, I couldn't agree with you more, and I've been troubled by this for several years. And I think you're bringing up a very good point, and it's that people's money, why are we deciding what charities to give to? I think we should discontinue this endeavor, and also Alex Jackson has suggested maybe if we continue it at all, it's to environmental organizations to whom or with whom we are doing some sort of business, let's say, where we're looking for grants or where they granted us something and they need something. Maybe in those situations where, let's say, it's a quid pro quo, we're getting something, so we're showing our contribution. But other than that, I absolutely.
Well, I don't know whether I make that a policy, or maybe that's something where, all right, we're doing this thing and we want to issue a grant.
Right.
That, and now, I know the group's talking about water, preservation and water cleanliness, and maybe there's an organization that can come in and do it. I see that more as a contract, and maybe it's more of a thing, if it's a nonprofit that can do it, then we issue them a small mini grant or something. Yeah, it's not the same as a donation as a
I
sponsor.
agree, I mean, for what it's worth, I felt like supervisors in the past were like, you know, I really love this thing. So we should donate.
And they've asked for $300, let's give them $300.
And I think that that's a little goofy. I do think that there are some contributions that have been warranted, and certainly other municipalities do this. I mean, if you go to any of those events, they all have, like, thanks for, you know, Sprout Township for your.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's wrong,
No,
I'm
no,
just
no,
saying I don't know that.
Well,
It makes sense.
agree, I felt like I support the arts, you know, personally, but I always felt it was kind of interesting to see the township. Just give a couple $100 to the Arts Council, what good does that really, you know, do for them specifically? I kind of thought, you know, when Todd and Maura came here from United Way and talked about 2-on-1, I thought that made a lot of sense, but I felt that made more sense when you compare that to everything else.
That's more like falling under EMS sort of world.
And that's kind of what I thought, but I felt like, I don't think the budget was ever consistent, it was just kind of grew, they call them like. Congress, it's like a Christmas tree, though, everyone adds their little thing, and then eventually. We had a million different groups that we each gave a couple dollars to. Poking Mountain Council of Governments does that with the golf tournament, and it goes to like police, fire, that type of deal. And I think that we should be mostly in line with that. I remember we had a lot of issues where people, you know, the township gave a lot of money to Awesome over the years. And then when we said no, we didn't want to give them money because they mistreated their, you know, staff, and they had their whole thing, and it's like, we just don't need to be involved. You know, so I generally agree.
Well, I would be much more comfortable, I mean, it brought up Alex's suggestion, but I'm much more comfortable if we didn't give anything to anybody under these circumstances. It's the people's money. And so I agree with Michael.
I think it's an overly general.
Okay,
It's
so
overly general way to say it.
question, this point says discuss. Can we make a motion to set up a policy, or we have to wait for the policy in place?
No, I mean, we can have it drafted, and we don't need to move to draft anything, I think. Be a simple resolution, that will change, you know, as we do the budget, I mean, we haven't issued any of those contributions, so.
Because those are gonna be in October, I think you said.
Yeah,
I
budget.
believe we've already issued one to the retired seniors volunteer program.
I-
For
Yeah.
leave hours.
Okay.
I would need to look and refresh my memory on anything else.
Yeah, and again, I.
Let's do this motion.
Well, it's not gonna need a motion, she's gonna draft something, but I'm curious to hear from
I mean,
if anyone has any thoughts.
I was gonna say, just before we do that, I feel like when they're directly connected to something that we get as opposed to, hey, hope this helps. I think it makes sense, but I wouldn't necessarily just. I don't think the 10,000 number came out of, oh, we felt this was a reasonable level of help, it was more like, oh, everything we're doing adds up to 10.
Yeah,
And
it sounds like that's a budgeted item because we've already bought, this township's always
Yeah.
spent about $10,000 a year on these sorts of
Yeah,
contributions.
I'd rather have, you know, I see poking on things like. Go ahead, Pat.
Hi, I'm Pat Owens, and I was just thinking about this in relationship to the environmental council. And we have been told by various presenters who have come that the most successful endeavors of the committee are getting public involvement. And it seems to me like that occasionally there are groups that can generate that public involvement better than we can. Does that, is what you're talking about prevent something like that?
I don't think so. I mean, I think there's, if you had a specific initiative, and you were trying to get a group to do it and it costs them money to do that. I
Okay.
mean, that can be an agreement around that, as opposed to, I mean, we've already had groups come and say, we're hoping to make a $300 contribution to this initiative because it's important in the township, which is fine. There's lots of things that are important in the township. And I think, but I just don't know that that's the type of entity we are.
Okay, I just want to be clear that if we came up with something that needed outside help and it needed to be reimbursed, we could do that if we showed what it was for.
Oh, yeah, yeah, this wouldn't really affect like the EAC, you know, when necessary can ask us to, you know, have a certain professional do something, and that wouldn't be a problem. This is more like the township.
We could take a $300 ad in our program,
Yeah, just say,
right?
Yeah, like I've seen that as like good.
It happens, I just don't know what we're like, good job, Smithfield Town.
It's.
well, as an individual,
Yeah.
I agree with Robert.
Yeah, like I felt like, you know, when we gave money to the Rotary, like, okay, that's great, but instead of an ad, maybe we can actually just. Do something that serves, you know,
Or maybe we should give them number. I mean, I would be happy to go to this.
you always ask.
We're not doing this.
Well, that's why a policy would be nice to have,
Yeah.
because it makes it easy to say, when someone comes and says, can we
Yeah.
have money? This is our policy around
Yeah.
donations.
Really, what else, have anything you want to say?
I just had a suggestion, you know, instead of people coming and asking for donations, like, I'm gonna give an example. Like Awesome, you know, you use, and some people might not like pets or whatever, but that's like taxpayers, but like HOAs that are nonprofit organizations. That has a hard time collecting dues, but they need money to fix a dam or something. With the township agree to do something like that, if the nonprofit HOAs come and ask for help.
I mean, we don't have nearly the budget to do anything that would be
I'm just saying.
worthwhile. I mean,
300, 500, 250 like that.
I think you're gonna see us stop giving 3 and 500.
I think on that, I mean, I think it entirely depends on if it's, given it's talking about HOAs, which are a challenge for us a lot of times, and enforcement around HOA issues and concerns and complaints. I think it all depends on if it's strategic for the township, so if it means that, you know, it's a contribution to something, but then that gets designated or something, I think.
Yeah,
And I don't think that would affect this policy I'm talking about.
yeah, like cause in the context of what you're saying. I think it was Twin Lakes Estates that applied for an LSA grant, you know, I think there are. Means by which we can be helpful like that. You know, without necessarily giving us pittance. You know,
Applying for
the fire
LSA
company.
is different.
Especially as it relates, you know, public safety and stuff like that, you know, I think that's important.
I think the language is really around donations and sponsorships, which
Yeah.
tend to not have specific outcomes attached to them.
Right,
When organizations are looking for unrestricted revenue effectively.
yeah,
So we're basically saying no to unrestricted donations. I think in that case, the language, maybe, Julia, unrestricted
Yeah.
Sponsorship or.
I think that fit with a lot of what Alex wrote, so we can put that in some legalese. And do that. And then we can actually. Well, figure out what to do with some of those funds theoretically. Not that it's nearly enough to do much. Okay, we also want to talk about performing special events permits. I think everyone saw us approve these tonight, and typically when they're for nonprofits, they are, you know, approved and waived insofar as the fee, but we also kind of find that they don't actually provide us much of anything. Because the nature of them is, you know, the type of the event, 4th annual Old Truck Show, you know, the location and where and when you're gonna post signs. I think that it was something the township used to do because it theoretically was just like, oh, thanks for letting us know and have $50. I kind of feel like. also naming the township as an additional insured. That might be worth keeping, although we never have control over any of these events.
And they're on private property.
Yeah, we're not
Yeah, I
responsible.
gotta say, it seems really odd to me, is
Yeah.
that because it's a sanctioned event that someone could, this is a question, I'll say a question for Ron.
Yeah.
Like, because it's a township sanctioned event, because they received a permit, but then the township becomes liable for something, is that the reason? I assume that's what it
I
is.
mean, you can sue anyone for anything, like we know from when someone got hit as I guess I won't get into the details necessarily, but someone. You know, who had an issue, got hit onto a line by the.
So, yeah, we were sued, but we,
Well, yeah, I mean, I wasn't gonna get too deep, but I was gonna say essentially, you know, they wanted us to be part of that too, but just because something is here doesn't mean.
just because it
We
happens
can
in the
do
township.
liability.
I would say, unless it's something on township property, for instance, the annual park still goes on. Parks for instance, I think there's a Independence Day celebration on Wadsworth, isn't it? Or it used to be, so things like that, where they close the street. But other than that, why are we interfering?
Well, that's what I'm saying, and we make them pay money, we grant it anyway, it's not necessarily discretionary, I do think that we should probably. I don't wanna say get rid of it altogether, cause I think. You kind of need to be able to quantify why you need it, and I think if we had an arena. Or something like that where, you know, you would expect a huge flow of traffic or something like that. You
Well,
aren't.
your own for our, if it's up to, somebody's held on any of our parks, you want an insurance for that, for sure.
Yeah,
Right, it's on public property.
well, typically though, when that's the case, to use the park, they already have to have a permit and insurance.
And also, in point of fact, reality, of all these little permits like this, there's a few others. Maybe we make $300 a year, it's like nothing on the money.
Doesn't make sense, but I guess the idea of these special event permits is it allows someone to do something that might otherwise not be allowed on that property given zone, right? I think that's the purpose,
Like a garage sale.
correct, or like a,
Years.
well, the problem then, of course, is then someone says, I'm doing a special permit, I'm doing a special event every weekend, you know, just.
Right.
Trying to think of the loopholes
Well,
that
it's
people
funny,
apply.
there's no regulation of that at all either. So like a yard sale, you can do that only twice a year.
Right,
There is no such limit in special event permits. And it makes sense, right?
but then
Because-
you wouldn't grant it, if they started applying for it every week, you'd say, no, I can grant it.
And I think that's, you know, the thing, because like, for example, with the ski area, you know, they're gonna have plenty of special events and, you know.
I also gotta tell you, I mean, I think I've held special events, I have no idea.
Well, and that's what I'm saying, that there's no triggering criteria, it's just, oh, if you wanna let us know.
We're on a resort, and we have special events every single weekend, but
Correct.
why would I? And what defines a special event? Like, my understanding is it means it's something different than you normally do on that space, right?
And then we have to define.
Theoretically, but that's actually not in the ordinance.
So it says, just.
No, there's really nothing for this, and John, I don't know if you have experience with seeing these types of things elsewhere, but this just seemed like what I'll call a Smithfield special, because I don't know, I was disgusted one time when I was running for supervisor, the board, which is obviously different now, had accepted someone's $50 for their grand opening at their restaurant, it's like, thanks for doing business here. Thanks for the $50, we really appreciate it, and also no one went, so like. That's why I
Grand
want,
opening, you see, don't be that, that's what they're doing.
well, exactly, that's why I wanna, you know,
So at least, at a minimum, it needs to be clarified.
Yeah.
When you need this.
I think it needs to be clarified, and we need to remove the fee on these things.
yeah.
It's just a nuisance, it's really another tax.
Because if anything ever really happens that it's of that significance, they're generally required to get some sort of outside,
Right.
you know, approval that's beyond us.
So I think the key is if you're doing something we have to frame it so that it is around, if you're doing something. Maybe something that's not otherwise allowed under your use and not otherwise allowed in that
So
zone.
the only reason it makes sense with the fireworks is because that will obviously make noise louder than what you would expect.
Well, that's a good point. We also have, what was the ordinance we just passed? Not the noise, was the noise one. The noise. So the noise one is relevant because it does specifically say if it's a township approved event, which I assume was in reference to this.
Correct, so that's the only link that I can find, we can of course do more digging, but I think that.
So if someone wants to do their opening ceremony and get a permit, then they can be loud as they want. I'm just, I'm not.
No, I get what you're saying, but that's what I think the thing is, we.
But it's helpful for us to know.
Yeah.
Why in the world we have these permits, because that'll help us determine whether or not we approve them or not, because I'm like, sounds great, good, go ahead.
Cause like, I don't think it's necessary for someone to have, you know, some music at their grand opening thing, cause it's not a special event, if you open up. You know, let's say that the vacant place that used to be a thrift store on Milford Road, you buy that, you're gonna do a grand opening, right? Great. I don't think you need a permit for that unless you plan on doing some of these things, and in that case, we're just not gonna grant it anyway, we don't need. Fireworks to be done and something like that, so I think this is something that we can.
Do we have a policy on this?
So it is in our code of ordinances under chapter 13, section 502 to 506, students with special events. Special event permit is not defined in our ordinance, as it currently is, it just says. No person shall engage in any special event within the township of Smithfield without first receiving a special event permit. And it goes on to say.
Exactly. Like, I wanna know when was that, can you tell me when that was added to the ordinance?
No baby shall be born.
That's right.
It was added
No
by
birthdays.
ordinance 133 on January 28th of 1997.
Why, that's just crazy, that's not so, wow.
You know why it was probably there because somebody had a party that a neighbor objected to, came in here and said, we need an ordinance.
And cause if you want to close traffic, like if you like the Worthington Ave thing. You know, like obviously if they come in, we're probably not gonna be done changing this before then, so we'll just do it.
County roads make sense for a special.
Well,
permit.
I was going to say,
May I interrupt? I'm so sorry, I misspoke, I'm not used to looking at it on the small screen, you kind of have a definition for special event. Can't be longer than 10 days, it has to be temporary, like a carnival, fireworks, festival. You have to have adequate parking and control, your signs would be directional only. Compliance as determined by the board of supervisors, the board can add conditions.
But that's not defining what it is.
Right,
Saying what you have to do.
And also, we shouldn't have any requirements if it's on private property, who cares about the parking?
Well, as long as it's in keeping with the use that is allowed on that property. That's the one issue, right? I mean, otherwise you can skirt all zoning by just saying, I'm having special events all the time.
correct,
I have a residence, but I'm having a special party, and yes, I'm charging admission, and yes, it could be called a bar, but it's not. It's a special event, so you just have to make sure you get around,
yeah.
the language has to be clear that. And then maybe it's by right, you get it, but you have to file it, and that's it.
Correct. Well, I think, you know, beyond that too, I agree with that perspective, I think. When we talk about stuff like, you know, Diane Tharp's party, you know, the block party type of thing. Having to go through a permit process for that, like, I feel like if you request that the road be closed, I feel like we can handle that without necessarily. That type of permit. I think when it's smaller uses, you know, whatever, but when it's larger stuff, I think what you're talking about with it following the use of the property itself. Makes sense.
Do we, just to close this up, who drafts this, and
So that is unfortunately one of the complications because, by my count, between Alex and myself, we currently have 8 other zoning ordinances in the pipeline.
Yeah.
Do you want this?
is it an ordinance change?
It is because it's in our
Right.
ordinance, chapter 13.
Yeah.
Do you want this fast tracked in front of anything?
No,
or
I think that we can continue to do what we've been doing with the understanding that by hopefully next year. I mean, hopefully before then, but like by the end of this year, when we're not doing dark sky. Wetlands.
Signage.
In the meantime, we can all just know that we'll probably waive every fee and approve every permit.
Yeah.
So long as it meets these things,
Yeah,
not every permit, as long as it meets what we just discussed.
right. Did we take a fee for Ntosi? Or did we waive that at the last meeting? I should know, it was in the last meeting. I mean, I know that we mentioned it that day specifically, so I just wanna know.
I have a question. I don't know what you, are you gonna answer comment about that?
Yeah, you,
Oh, okay.
yeah, you can first.
Is the fee in the ordinance?
It's in a fee schedule.
Okay, so you could just go ahead and change the fee schedule to 0, without changing the ordinance immediately.
Yeah, but it just, for us, it just makes sense, I mean, probably do that too, but I think that. Yeah,
So I mean, you could do that immediately.
that makes
right?
sense.
Can we do it today or we have to wait till it's considered?
So the
fee
fee
schedule by
schedule is set
resolution.
by resolution, so I can have that prepared for the June 12th.
That sounds good,
Meeting.
that'll be on the consent agenda.
Okay, and
Let's
then
start.
1836 did not ask for a fee waiver, so.
Okay, well, I'll get one, but next time. Cool. I think we sufficiently covered what the township intends to do on the Ellis enforcement matter, but was there anything else anyone wanted to add?
Yeah. I have a question about it too. There were several other, he did not apply for permits for many of the, repairs and modifications they did to his house. Is there any, was he cited for that?
He actually ended up coming in just the other day and filing for those, so I know that they were in discussion. I don't know anything beyond.
Typically from my understanding, and I'm new here, but. When someone, begs for forgiveness as opposed to asking permission, it depends, so, cause a lot of the times the permits are just, they're there for safety sake, right, to make sure they're built to code. So usually, and I don't know how this will go about, if someone has built something. And our engineers are able to go and properly inspect everything, then the fact they paid at fact ends up being, if it was permittable. However, it's supposed to be, if they cannot inspect it, so that it's code, it has to be torn down. So that it's not by default, it gets torn down. And just sort of, right, am I right? That makes sense?
How does that, yes, how does that pertain to his retaining wall, the 12-foot retaining wall he put up without any state?
I don't know if you are, has he submitted a permit for that?
I spoke to Ken and Ken told me that he had come in to discuss them. I don't know if that meant an exchange of permits. Or if anything has been formally filed at the time, but I will get that update and find out.
Well, the other thing too is that, if it's permissible with the use that's present, and not a change of use, then that's a different situation.
And also, what about, what he also is, telling everyone that he's putting in this huge garage on his property, did he apply for permit to put this garage in?
And I have to see exactly what permits he filed, if any at the moment, I have not heard of that happening.
I don't only know the deck, but
Correct.
I know the deck is filed.
Okay, because my question was, because the covenants in our development state that you can only have a 2-car garage.
Mm-hmm.
And he wants to put up an additional huge garage, and we know that it's gonna be him that puts equipment in it, I mean, we already pretty much can surmise that's what he's gonna do.
Yeah.
Okay, would our covenants or development trump with the township given?
Now, covenants have to be enforced by those who place them upon, so the township cannot enforce an association's
Or
covenant.
your
No, that's not what I'm asking. I'm asking if you say, okay, you can have the permit. But our covenants and our development say, no, you cannot have this on your property. You can't have an
You
additional
can't
garage.
do it, but you have to enforce it.
We would have to take it.
Correct.
You could take him to court.
Okay, that was my question.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mhm. And the other thing, we double checked just to be safe, but the conservation district, the only folks that enforce conservation district regs. But we are going to send them formal correspondence, because there's 2 other cases that we also want to know why they haven't taken additional punitive action. So we'll update you on that as well, Tim.
Yeah, we'd appreciate that because I got copies of everything from the conservation department on that. And he hasn't complied with anything except one thing, and it's not even in the right place. There's silt barriers.
Yeah,
It's useless.
right. Yeah, typically, they give you a lot of room, but I think he's probably come close to exhausting that,
So
so.
they go through the same process we do. They seem, I feel like they have more teeth.
Yeah, they do have more teeth, but they don't go to district judges, I think they go
You go straight, one goes straight to the straight.
Right, yeah, because they have admin judges, right, or I forget exactly what they do, but. And then appeal from that, their determination, that would be the Commonwealth Court, so that's how that would go, so that they get a little bit quicker.
They jump
ride.
a few steps.
Yeah. So we'll be on that and then we'll certainly let you know what we hear.
Great, thank you, appreciate it.
Yeah, of course.
Or questions on health?
Next we had a discussion on the contract with Walter Sandstone with the sculptures per the grant we received. Where we wanna go on that?
Well, we've discussed it. If we're not giving it an advance, which I still feel is fair, we should at least put some limit on this contract, which at this point is limitless. It's like, when does he get paid? We're hoping to get this thing through by the end of June, but
So we're all on the same page, so. This was a grant that we received, and that was the LSA,
Correct.
an LSA grant that was received to purchase art. From a particular vendor. When was that contract done?
Yes.
2021, the contract was signed. And the contract stipulates several payments of the total $90,000 for the entire project. And there's 3 payouts effectively, and well, 4 for the different parts of the artwork, and they've all been paid. And the artwork's all been done.
Yeah,
Right, just haven't been installed because the path isn't ready to receive them.
Well, we initially thought it was because, wasn't it because of the NPDES, but now. We don't need that permit to go ahead with installation, or at least it seems to be,
Better question for John.
yeah.
Well, I think the area that the sculpture will take up, I mean, what's triggering your NPDS permit is your next phase of your target project. So I don't think,
It's weird water one.
What's that water?
There's weird, like the dog path and the second pavilion. The existing path, and I thought is to. You know, have an accessible path there, and the sculptures basically follow.
yeah.
Yeah. There's other grants that already existed with our match fairly low from
Where am I?
that predate me, like 2017, I wanna say it's the one that's. Part of the grant, right?
So this starts.
Predate both of us.
That was the one.
Yeah. It's all just like it's still on that.
This cheap wall.
Yeah, but that's where it starts.
Well, this is right.
Yeah, okay, you're okay. We know where the covered pavilion is on the other side of the soccer field.
Where's the building, the farmhouse?
The farmers over here.
Okay,
Then there's a soccer field.
what's this?
This is the path.
Oh, that one.
Okay, so, and I guess these are where the.
It's on top of the ridge there.
Yeah, well, it's not really on top, it's up on the ridge, right? It was originally, I think, a running path that went along.
All the soccer kids climb up here. Okay.
Yeah. So it goes all the way along. We've been waiting 2 years for NPDES permit. John was saying. Little disturbance we would probably make here, just clearing these places, maybe.
You guys go on fire. You guys go on fire.
That doesn't be more, so we can go ahead, install here, and then all the 10 zones here.
And we're still sitting on that grant money?
Yes.
We are waiting because we cannot do the path creation until we get the NPDES permit.
Well, we just said that we put those in, we don't need that.
you don't need the path. To put the sculpture in. You need the NPDS permit to put the path in.
I guess the big question is how long is the wait on that, and effectively, if we install these, let's say tomorrow. Will that impact the clearing that we have to do to complete the rest of the path?
I think.
So I think that's determinative in whether or not we install it soon
If
rather
you
than.
want to install it, as you say tomorrow, they should be installed at their permanent location, and I don't know what it's gonna take. To get them to their permanent location, I mean, I have not walked the site myself.
Right. So topographically, it's okay, it could be flatter and.
And is this only holding up a permit?
The permit application was us unable to get the files for about 3 months. We now have the files. We will be submitting in a week or two. Probably, next week's a short week, but if not next week, the following week. The permit application will be submitted to the conservation district. All the work has been done.
How long do the permits usually take?
And on the conservation district, I tell developers, this is not a development project. I tell developers anywhere between 3 and 6 months. I would hope this is on the shorter end because it's just simply a trend.
Yeah.
Anyway, and we can, I mean, once that's submitted, we'll already be in contact with the conservation district, so we can kind of, I mean, they already know it's not good. Right, we could just try to address that to them.
Jake,
Sure.
what is the question here? To pay the man for the sculptures?
So here's the thing, it's a contract has already been signed, it was
Yeah.
done in 2021. Anyone has issues with it, unfortunately, that ship has sailed. So the question is really, it's been dragging on for 2021,
That's what I would.
the sculptures are done.
Have we paid for the
We
sculptures?
paid for the sculptures, but the contract stipulates that final payment doesn't come until they get installed. So they haven't been installed yet because he has to help install them. And he is saying, I want to be done already, can we be finished? That's where the question is. I'm hesitant to do anything because the contract is very clear that it can't be done until it's been installed. And so the final $20,000 is not been paid, will not be paid until they get installed into their position. My one thought is if it's a question of 3 months, I feel like we're like at the finish line, let's not screw up anything until that's there.
And my position is, this guy, in good faith, did a contract 3 years ago. And did all the work.
Well, not just
Can't get his final payment because we're not installing this thing.
It's actually big, you've been paid $70,000, so.
But that's over 3 years.
Isn't the implication in the contract that installation will be possible?
Well, it will be possible, it's just
But
been,
it's not possible now.
it's not possible today, because we're waiting the permit, which will take 3 to 6 months.
What we're saying is, or John is saying, that, there's really no reason we couldn't install these before we get the permit, because, layout is already done. We know where they're going, and we can do this in phases.
I would just request, if we were to try to install them before the permit is in place. I think what's important is that we know, that means before the path's in place, we gotta make sure, we might have a design. But once we get the permit and then they start going in there, they might be like, oh, we have to move this over a foot because of this. And that's the last thing we wanna do is be like, oh, then there's another statue that we spent $30,000 on, it's gonna be that way, right?
Lift station.
These statues. I'm just saying, if you're gonna put the statues in before the path is in place, you run the risk that when they go to actually put in the path and they realize they can't, it has to be slightly different from that for some real reason, you run risk. That's the problem.
Yeah, or you make the path a little bit. But look, what we're really talking about is, it would be nice to wait that time, but I think it's unfair to say, I mean, this guy's asked for a $5,000 advance because he needs the money. To say, okay, we won't pay you until this thing is done, even though we've taken 3 years of your time, we've done all the work. And the contract unfortunately didn't have to have an end date in it. That's really the issue. I think it's unfair. Any vendor, say that.
My other question is, if we were to make an advance payment. How does that, and it differs from the contract with no change order or anything involved with that, how does that impact the reimbursement process? It's a DCED question.
Yeah,
Not for either, but I want to
I
make sure that procedurally.
them, and see, I don't have the answer to that, I don't know.
Yeah.
I will find out.
I just had a question. So how many of these units for $90,000 is this guy
There's 3
making?
statues.
3
giant concrete.
concrete, that's
statues.
what I was wondering, what are they made out of?
Yeah.
It's like it's like a bear and cub, right?
Yeah.
Statue, the concrete statue. I don't know what the other two is.
Yeah, the idea.
Wood carving.
No, someone else said that, but that wasn't true.
So this guy has them all done. and
Correct.
For $90,000. Now this grant that you're talking about, that's the 90,000, or do you have to
Yes.
match something? Is this a
grant
match?
is, yes, the grant is, within $10,000 here. It's about $150,000, the township is contributing 12, we're getting the rest.
150 is for the park, is the whole park.
Right.
The whole trail creation and everything.
Out of the trail creation.
I thought if this trail is accessible, and then both folks can. There will be an accompanying map, basically. I don't know if you've ever been on, like guided tours of any federal building or anything like that, but.
We're gonna.
Anyway, honestly, like.
No, we're not having guided tours. There's a.
This was a contract that was done back in 2021. It's,
Yeah.
it should be sales.
I mean, and did
I
you
don't-
guys know that you needed this permit 3 years ago? That this,
Yeah, why is it?
No, that changed.
okay, so where is this permit for?
In the course of, well, they said that we needed it for the entire upgrade of the park. So even though it was phased development, the whole thing required it, so that changed the conservation district interpretation of that standard change.
In 3 years, something changed, so now you have to abide by the change.
Yeah, so this came about when we were finishing the dock, at the creek over here.
We switched the dock, you know about the dock down there, there was supposed to be a fishing pier. So fishing game and 5 other government organizations got into it. Now, what they finally allowed us to do looks like a bandstand.
Yeah.
Many of those that play an instrument, there's
Yeah.
12 seats there, what all this ago.
Speaking of the parks, I heard that a lot of the swings are broken. So how can you go to the park and go on the swings when the swings are broken?
Is it a mini sink?
I didn't see any, but when I was at this thing today, I didn't see any.
I think it might be down there, I'm not quite sure, one of them, but the swings are
We'll
broken.
double check, because I was just there today, I didn't see.
We just purchased equipment and fixed a bunch of them.
Swings, like,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it was probably a couple months ago and I just never said anything, and so we're talking park talk, I thought, swing.
I just want to tell you a story about this administration versus the last, all right? If a swing is broken, we'll look at it and figure out how to replace it, and really repair it.
Well, we have someone that goes to the parks every year.
In the last administration, when a swing was broken, I remember the repairman bringing me in, an SP from Shane saying, well, we don't have to do anything more, this will fix it all, and it's like, this is not what we do here.
Yeah. Yeah, the swings are. But yeah, so this whole thing you're saying is 12,000 of the township money, but yet we got a 150 grant and 90 is going to this guy that did free. things.
Correct. They're essentially one of us.
Yeah, I mean, they're not the
90%, right?
wood.
No, they're not wood, because that.
They deteriorate,
Yeah, exactly.
exactly,
So,
so,
yeah, there should be,
Regardless, there's a contract in place. That has to be finished. It's not one, the question, so I guess my one point, in.
4 years.
So, I just think, there's gonna be any change, if there's gonna be any change, there needs to be a change to the contract.
well, Christine, you went first, I'll take it.
Get the permit.
Christine, I'll take it first.
The trail that has yet to be built.
Yeah.
What type of machinery is gonna be used to build that, and is it possible that they could damage these statues if they're installed
That's fine.
prematurely?
I'd much rather change the agreement, allow for, advance. And wait 3 months so we get the permit and install after the trail's in place, and the
Yeah.
risk breaking it, that's for that exact reason.
Will that negate the grant?
That's
That's why we
actually
reach out.
reach out, and then we can hopefully figure that out.
Got it.
That makes sense.
I'll want to give you kudos, by the way, for cleaning up, it went very good.
Thank you. Just, you know, I know you had the contract and I understand that. But I think it's only fair to try to do something for this guy because he's been waiting a long time. And things have went up drastically since 21, as we all know, so he's not, you know, he's had the contract, he's locked in, but I think we have to try to
Agreed.
I'll try to do something, I realize you need to do something with the contract, but I think it definitely should be something you guys should,
Yeah, well, we're gonna take care of it procedurally and then we
if
should
it's possible.
I think it probably will be, but DCD will tell us. Cause either which way, for these grants, we have to make the outlay and then we get the money back.
And to put them in place, I agree with you, if you put them in place now before the trail's in there, I think
Yeah,
you're just.
I have to imagine at minimum, you're gonna need a couple of skid steers and some,
Yeah, there's a risk you hit them and then, yeah, and then people are upset
we're
now.
gonna handle them for.
Plus, nobody's gonna be in here to watch them even using the trail, right?
Little bit of beer breaks up.
What's that?
Plus, nobody's gonna be in here really to see the statues or watch for vandalism until the trail is
Correct.
built.
Yeah,
So, there you have another thing.
I think you should,
What was Michael's
working on it.
suggestion?
oh, yeah,
you know, simply that we have to amend the contract
Yeah,
and, we're gonna ask
Pay the guy.
DCD if we, well, yeah.
yeah, and pay the guy.
He still has to, part of the contract of that 90,000, not just the sculptor, was installing them. So we do have to hold something,
Yes.
and I appreciate what you're saying, Robert, I just wanna make sure we do it properly and
I
then.
understand.
yeah, I think that's.
By the way, nobody really understands this because no one's seen anything, but if you.
And that's, yeah.
If you like, Marshall's Falls, what's been done there, think of it, of the same, let's say, philosophy, going into a trail where, people that are blind, people that are in wheelchairs can use it just as much as anyone else. It's called accessibility, and every park now should be built that way. And in fact, I mentioned the bandstand down there. The reason that looks the way it does is because it was built so that anyone in a wheelchair could go up and cast out fish. Unfortunately, we didn't know that it was gonna be on the shore, but that was the whole idea, accessibility.
It preceded me, but I know that was gonna be bigger.
But we're obligated to do that for persons with disabilities.
Yeah, okay. Seeing as we're pretty much settled with that, any general public comment? Okay, yeah,
Does the township have any interest in reviving the old airport? As an airport?
I can give you a little information on that, the current
I
owner,
know it's been sold, but
huh?
I know the property was sold.
So, I'm in touch with the current owners, and I haven't had a long conversation with them yet, but, they seem to both be interested in, opening up the airport again. I don't know if they will or not, but seems to be an interest of theirs. They're both items.
yeah, should be interesting. I mean, there's a number of cooks in the kitchen over there. Yeah. Correct.
I have a question regarding recycling. I understand from my research that recycling is a good thing.
Yes, yes, we agree on that. Sure.
And I'm wondering if the township does any education based on, for the general populace, including perhaps maybe an assembly at school or something, to teach people about the technicalities of.
About what?
The technicalities of recycling, what gets.
In general, we don't, and part of the reason for that is that recycling within our township is not municipally mandated yet, so we don't have standards that are uniform for all parties. For example, if you are with waste company ABC, they might accept plastics 1 through 6, but maybe the F only accepts 1 and 2. So if the township were to present anything, in general, like that, saying, here's what you can recycle, here's what you can't. Because that would vary so much on the private hauler, we need to actually disseminate this information. One of the things that we are in the process of working with right now, Robert and Alex actually met with the new manager of the Waste Authority. And we're in discussions right now about looking at how the township could assist the Waste Authority in picking up recyclables or having a drop-off area. It's still a very nascent idea, but it's something that we're looking into.
All that said, I mean, we encourage it as best we can. Also, we do attempt to make sure that that's, you know, in the newsletter and different things like that. And we're obviously in touch with the Waste Authority and seeing what the standards are. Our neighboring municipalities have done some other things, so it's something to watch. The other thing that the township did, at least, what was it last year or the year before? we discovered that the township had a grant, like, I wanna say between 2005 and 2010. To give out free recycling bins that said recycling works in Smithfield Township. And we found like 60 of them that haven't been given away, so we got rid of those in like a month.
Yeah, we just set them outside and said, hey, free for anyone that wants one.
Now almost everybody's looked into.
And we said, not only can you have it, it's recyclable.
Yes, so, there are things like that.
Yeah, the thing about recycling is, I think it should be part of, I would hope it would be part of this public education. Get them young and trained, like in grade school, they got an assembly said, recycling is probably what you're gonna do for your entire life, so here's how you should do it. So education essentially from small.
Education would be good. One of the problems here is we have three big haulers. We
Yeah,
have Waste Management, GFL and Mosquero. And each one of them has different rules because it depends which materials resource facility they're going to and they're dumping in. And, you know, one can take maybe plastic bags, but another can't take pizza cartons or something. You don't know, nobody knows. And they don't give you any information. And one of the reasons is, to them, it's a commodity business. They really don't care about it a lot. They offer it and they charge you something. But their main business is hauling, doesn't matter what it is. So they're not really into it, but we should be able to do more on that. We have to. But Alex, our head of conservation and recreation, is just starting all this. And he's overwhelmed with everything that we haven't done. Yeah, we're trying to get to it.
Thank you.
Awesome, thanks. Christine, you're.
Yeah, just a comment about recycling and, that certain things are able to be more easily recycled than others. Plastics, by and large, the great bulk plastics go straight to the landfill. Recycling and the recycling symbol was all just a marketing campaign created by the plastics industry. So, so there's, some recycling is more realistic than others.
I think you're right. I think it's an interesting thing, Christine. You ever see the commercials that are talking about how they're investing in it? They're trying to make us feel like we're the issue. It's the same thing with carbon emissions. It's
And the
like,
resources we waste to, rinse our cans and, that are, going straight to the landfill. Hard work.
I can tell you that at Waste Management landfill, every day there's a a walking floor trailer, 40-foot trailer, full of plastic, shredded plastic, that comes into the landfill at least 6 times a day and dumps in the landfill. And it's not recycled. It's just, it's added to the landfill, just like if you would take that bottle and, okay, so it does take up maybe a little less room, but
It may be contaminated. That may be their problem.
not that much, Robert. It's
There's just no market
there's no
for it.
market for it, and they just don't know what to do with it,
Plastics don't.
unfortunately.
that's why the
Yeah,
big thing is just to make it sustainably instead of,
yeah.
telling everyone to do your part. But is there anything else before I entertain it?
I had a question, I kind of came in, I think, after, I don't know, the bills, 535,000.
Yeah,
When I was looking at it, general's only 67, but then you had the fire tax 238 and the EMS tax 121. That money went into the 500, but, right, is that what our new tax is that we paid?
Yes.
Correct.
County township
and
money?
that went right out.
We'll break that gap, yeah, for what?
The partner, Martha, Chris, Shawnee, and
Yeah,
They all got that much money, 238
we gave,
and 121.
so on EMS, Bush Hill got $90,457.42. Suburban got $27,351.02. Marshall's Creek EMS got $3,313.27. Marshall's Creek Fire got $103,792.48. Shawnee received $108,750.63. And Delaware got Fire Company got $25,976.86.
So now, is that just a one-time payment to them?
they're gonna get paid quarterly.
Yeah, quarterly
So
based on what
upon
we take in.
income,
Correct.
because we all
Correct.
just paid that now.
Right,
So you had a lot of money and you separated it to everybody's further
right,
percentages.
so probably
So
90%
like
of
after
it.
June 30th, when people pay a base, then the next quarter, so these are quarterly payments.
Yeah, exactly.
And this is the biggest.
Right.
Wow.
Because we get the most now, but we also, are withholding, each company, well, 2% in general. But, for the volunteer service tax credit, so that's what we reimburse for the first responders themselves for the tax. But in
So
addition, we also withhold like insurance costs or fuel costs based on what each group needs. So in the end, the split favors Marshall's Creek because they have 53%, Shawnee gets 38% based on their size, but
Right.
the amount will be roughly that once the actual contributions are done, so
So
some of
this-
it's in-kind stuff.
359, that was like all the money that was taken in?
Yeah,
Pretty much?
pretty much,
From the taxes that we all just paid.
yeah,
Wow,
Debbie.
359.
Oddly enough, and if you talk about EMS, I just wanted to say that in the near future, I'll be talking to Julia about offering free hands-only CPR classes here at the township for residents, as we're doing with Middle Smithfield. And certainly next Wednesday evening, and I'll do it here, but if someone wants to come sooner, next Wednesday evening, we're offering a free class in administration of Narcan and EpiPens. So we're going to be offering those kinds of classes on a rolling basis, so residents can come and do that as our thank you.
Thank you.
Debbie, where is that class going to be?
It's at the Middle Smithfield Township Community Center,
And that is at what time?
6:30.
Thank you.
I'm so sorry,
It's all good.
and I'll fill out their paperwork. Thank you.
See,
Just to piggyback on Joanne's, budget question. I've asked, I don't have a mouse in my pocket, I've asked a couple times about, making some of that a little more transparent. We talked about having to relax.
Yeah, we're working
things and
on it.
whatnot. They were gonna be discussing the way to make some of that a little more contextual for us. So
Yeah,
I was
we're-
wondering how that was going.
we're going well, I have a couple examples from other municipalities, so we're looking at
Cool.
something akin to that, and
In the meantime, you hear us going over them. Right now.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah, but just to have more detail, we can always,
Yeah.
but I think that
Oh,
we're looking for,
Well, only 67 came out of the general fund, so.
right,
Well, on a payroll week.
right, right.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
really small basic stuff.
Well, this week, I'm just mean as an ongoing.
No.
Yeah, I'm working on, I'm just saying, until we get there, we're still trying to be as transparent.
Right,
Why I was going over that at the beginning.
right.
Okay, I have one quick question. I know at the last meeting, the saloon got a special events permit, and I was wondering what that was for.
That was their,
That's it, the last one. Let me read it, yeah, I wanna say it was. That's,
I think it was a car show.
it's a car show, and by the way, it's contingent on them paying some back pay for sewage.
yes, they're like, they,
Well, I was just kind of wondering, I know you said the business can do what they want, but that parcel, I don't know.
Well, I don't know if that,
Rules out.
I was half joking in saying that it seems as though the idea of the special permit is to enable slightly looser, fireworks are gonna be loud and aren't normal. I don't know what it actually says you're allowed to do, it just becomes sort of township.
yeah, well, and that was preempted anyway by the legislature.
I'm not talking about fireworks, I'm
Yeah.
just thinking about noise, does that mean if you have a special event permit that they're allowed to be over 65 decibels? And I don't think our special permit says that. So it's something that we should think about as we update
Let's
that.
make sure if it was issued
Well,
or.
I was thinking not only, they also, I know on their schedule, they're having 2 fireworks shows.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So July,
1836 saloon?
yeah, on their
Fireworks shows?
schedule, it says July 4th and July 6th. And so, and plus they're having, July 4th, they're having a band, and they're having a open mic on the other one.
Get
So-
the packet from that
And then, I don't know who issues the permits for that, for those fireworks.
to the zoning office,
Okay.
I'm just going to. Check that, we can do that offline, but we'll, definitely be in touch about that.
Well, and the other thing I was just thinking about car shows, about spacing of it, they're gonna have a car show from 9 to 3, and then where are these cars gonna park, and then the people that go to the show, where they, I got busy.
Well, typically they lease the space across the street. in the
Oh,
park.
did they? Oh, all right.
When they sell that.
All right,
Last one.
thank you.
The fireworks issue connected me back to the special events permit, and
Yeah,
fireworks are a safety issue.
They're
There's a
state
lot of
regulated,
them.
right?
Say again?
Fireworks, we are not, as a township, allowed to regulate them. The state of Pennsylvania specifically says, basically hands off.
yeah, there's like two things that we can touch with.
Does anyone regulate them?
Yeah, Office of the State Fire Commissioner.
Okay. So they would come out, so they would issue a permit for fireworks shows?
We don't need.
No, you don't need permits. So
Are
when
you
the,
serious?
yeah, so the legislature, a few years back, there was one senator that was obsessed with this. And they adopted a law that basically let people do whatever. I
There's
don't,
certain restrictions, though, are there not?
You are required to have licenses to be able to set fireworks off for commercial display.
yeah, the only other distinction is you don't need.
Like a-
you
like a-
can't be within 150 feet of a structure. So like in Delaware, Water guy, we're not, can't do anything. That's,
Yeah, a lot of stuff we do.
seems act.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
They do it every year, yeah, in Glenwood.
Where?
Yeah, in Glenwood,
No.
race show, it's a beautiful show, but it's right next to a chemical plant.
Yeah.
Really? So good.
It's the truth.
Yeah.
That's
It's a
true.
beautiful show.
All right,
I can see
do I hear a motion to adjourn? Motion to adjourn, Luke, first, love it, and second by Mixel, all in favor? Aye. 37:40. Then I will definitely be in touch on that, I'll double check on
Night go by, and I thought, I lost it on purpose, before the meeting, not even me.
Checks.
I think we could write it. When you're dead.
Robert Terrace. Oh, yeah, yeah.
Somebody else.
Almost done.
Glasses.
Oh, yeah,